I'm a hustler, man. I'm always get it off the muscle, man. Tryna make them hundreds bust the rubber bands. Rain, sleet, hell or snow, I'm tryna get it in. Woo! I go door to door, stacking up them dollars like dominoes. I go door to door.
Hustlers. What's cracking? It's your boy Deshaun. Welcome back to another episode of Roof Hustlers, baby. We will tackle all your daily door-to-door objections, rejections, and we teach you guys how to make connections, man. Because if you ain't creating genuine customer connections, building better customer relationships, and providing premier customer service, then you know, like I know, guys, you ain't making a difference in your wallet or the community, baby. And that's what we do over here at Roof Hustlers, man. We help you guys go from average to good, from good to great. Always keeping food on your plate, baby. Because if you do what I do, you know it's a jungle out here. So, this week on Roof Hustlers, what I want to cover with you guys is, as you know, I fly around the country and I work with a lot of sales teams, right? In one episode, I showed you, the things that I see that people aren't doing at the door that's, hurting their pockets and stopping them from making money. This time, what I want to share with you guys is 6 things I've been noticing as I've been flying around the country, right, that may be crippling your culture, right? So 6 things that may be crippling your culture. So you can fix these things and build a thriving culture and have everybody making money at the highest levels, right? So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. As I've been flying around the country, guys, right? One of the first things I've been noticing that's been crippling a lot of companies' culture is the lack of accountability. All right. There's not a lot of accountability from the leadership. There's not a lot of accountability from other salespeople. There's not a lot of accountability from the office people. So guys are able to make mistakes and not experience repercussions or any type of disciplinary actions that come with that accountability. You got to understand, when people aren't held accountable, they find ways to cut more corners. They find ways to find more leeway. They find ways to just scoot around the authority within the company, right? So you got to hold your sales guys accountable. Hold them accountable to put notes in the system, right? Hold them accountable to getting their paperwork in on time. Hold them accountable to following up with leads, right? Hold them accountable to getting estimates out. Hold them accountable to the things that they said they are going to do. Hold them accountable to getting on the doors. Hold them accountable to actually working a certain amount of hours, hitting a certain amount of doors, right? Hold your people accountable. What we used to have to do my first year in the industry, we always used to have to, at the end of every day, we have to turn in our paperwork, show how many deals we closed, and talk about how many doors we knocked, right? So when you was held accountable, you had a higher chance of showing up and getting the job done. But when you just let guys kind of go left to their own demise and do what they want to do, no accountability, no structure, right? Your culture is going to suffer from that. So start holding your people accountable. And as you hold them accountable, believe it or not, they'll start rising to the occasion and actually start meeting your standards, right? So that's the first thing I've been noticing as I fly around the country. Little to no accountability, right? The lack of accountability is going to kill the success in your culture. So that's the first thing I've been noticing. The second thing I've been noticing as I've been flying around the country, right, working with sales teams, is low expectations. All right, low expectations, low standards, right? You kind of let your guys go out there and do whatever they want to do. If they bring a deal in this week, cool. If they don't bring a deal in, cool. No big deal. And then I do work with some companies who have really good standards and really good expectations, and all of their guys hit certain numbers, certain quotas, right? I work with one company that expect their guys to do 100,000 plus a month, and they do that 100,000 every month, right? And beyond. So I'm a firm believer that every company needs a quota. You need a minimum, right? So my first year in the industry, we was expected to bring in at least 5 claims a week. On the low end, we could bring in maybe 3 claims a week. But I work with some companies, they have no quotas, no expectations, no standards. And understand, people will always rise to your level of expectations, and people will always, rise to your standards. And you always gonna get what you tolerate. So if you tolerate guys not bringing in deals or, bageling week in, week out, that's what you're gonna start to create within your culture. And everybody gonna be like, well, if he allowed to bring in 0 deals, I could bring in 0 deals. But when you set a standard or expectation, or you set a quota, and like I always recommend is 3 minimum, majority of your guys will hit that, right? And then the guys that's not hitting that, they're gonna work hard to hit that. And now you got everybody hitting 3 a week, and everybody got, they're hitting their numbers. We got high claims, we got high turnaround, but high builds, everything transitioning very consistently. So I highly encourage you guys, set some standards, right? Set higher expectations, set higher quotas, and watch all of your guys rise to those numbers. So that's the second thing I've been noticing, just low standards, low expectations, just letting guys do what they want to do and just letting them get by. So change your standards, change your expectations. The third thing I've been noticing is, I call it favoritism, right? So hear me out when I say this favoritism. I don't mean like you got a guy that's a good closer, so you give him more deals, that type of favoritism. I'm talking about favoritism where you got a guy, he's a top performer, and he's allowed to miss meetings, right? He's allowed to not do certain things because he brings in certain numbers. So you as an owner, you're afraid to lose that guy or lose that $1 million or whatever it is that he's bringing in. So you give him a lot of leeway and you let him get away with murder. And I want you to understand, one thing I've learned from some top performers or some top coaches that I've been trained by is you never compromise your culture for talent. You never compromise your culture for talent. So it don't matter how good a guy is, if he doesn't fit within the culture, he has to go. So a lot of guys I work with, some owners, right? They got a guy who's a top performer. They're like, well, he brings in good numbers, so he don't really have to be here. Or he brings in good numbers and he don't got to do this. No, guys, that's not acceptable. It doesn't matter if he's a top performer. He's still expected to show up to the meetings. He's still expected to be on time. He's still expected to put his paperwork in, right? He still needs to be held to the same level of expectations as all the other guys in the company. Because once they see that he get favoritism, believe it or not, sometimes it drops the performance of other people because they're like, man, he get away with murder. I'm trying to do what he do. And they try to cut those corners as well. So stop showing that toxic favoritism. That's what I call it. It's toxic favoritism. Where just because a guy is a top performer, he gets away with murder. And if you study any high performance teams, the high performers are actually held to the highest level of standards. Why? Because they're the model salesperson or the model athlete. So you got to treat those guys no different than anybody else. I remember my high school coach cut our top running back because he missed practice twice. He didn't compromise his culture for talent. So that's another thing I've been noticing, toxic favoritism. So you guys need to switch that, change that, fix that. The fourth thing I've been noticing, right, is no consequences. And you're like, what do you mean no consequences? I mean, there's no consequences for guys not doing things or not hitting quotas or missing meetings or not getting paperwork on time or like not following up on leads. And I'm not telling you need to punish your guys, but I heard from one of my coaches, right, where there's no consequences, there's no change. And you got to understand, if guys can fumble leads, if they can get a lead from the company and they don't call them in time and there's no consequences that come from it, they're going to keep doing it. Right? If a guy can wait 3-4 days to put paperwork in and he don't get no consequences from it, he gonna keep doing it. So you have to have some type of disciplinary actions in place for when guys don't do certain things. And I know you love to say, well, they 1099s, they technically do what they want to do. You need to go talk to a lawyer, but I got some friends who are lawyers in the roofing industry, and that ain't how this works. Right? So you got to be mindful and have some type of disciplinary actions in order when guys don't do certain things. So if a guy don't hit his quota 3 weeks in a row, you don't let him go 3 more weeks without hitting his quota. You sit down with him. You have a talk. You put him on probation. And then there has to be some type of consequences when he don't hit his numbers. Why? Because then now everybody else know what can take place, and it makes everything go a lot smoother within your culture. So if you don't have any consequences, I highly encourage you put some in place. That way you can govern the behavior of your sales guys within your culture, right? So where there's no consequences, there's no change. You need some type of consequences for guys who try to buck the system or rebel, or guys who just feel like the rules don't apply to them. So get you some consequences. The fifth thing I've been noticing as I've been flying around, right, is most leaders, right, sales managers don't possess team awareness, What do I mean by that? You don't know who's on your sales team. Yeah, you know their name, but you don't know who they are as an individual. You don't know their personality type. You don't know how they're wired. You don't know what motivates them. You don't know what inspires them. So in return, right, you treat everybody the same and you wonder why you can't get your people to perform. Everybody motivated by different things, right? Some guys motivated by recognition. Some guys motivated by money, right? Some guys motivated by embarrassment, just not being embarrassed. Some guys motivated by fear of loss. Some guys motivated by competition, right? And on top of that, you got the DISC assessment, right? You got the D, the I, the S, the C. You got the bulldog, the golden retriever, the owl, the lab. Your sales guy usually fall within one of those 4 categories and sometimes heavy in 2 of those categories. So you have to take time to figure out who you are as a manager, right? And then you got to understand who your sales team is. And then you can speak to them the way they like to be spoken to. And you can start pulling the best out of them instead of trying to push them to that next level. You help pull them to that next level. But most sales managers I've seen don't take the time to actually really understand their sales team so they can help them perform at the highest level. So I've been noticing that a lack of team awareness. You just treat everybody the same, right? You got to understand, it's just like being a dad, right? Just because you love your kids the same don't mean you love your kids the same. Right? You love them equally, but you love them differently. That's how you got to do your sales, guys. So take time to learn your sales team, learn yourself, and then get everybody thriving at a high level. So that's another thing I've been noticing. Lack of team awareness, a little to no team awareness. And last but not least, the final thing I've been noticing as I've been flying around the country, right, working with a lot of sales teams, this one is huge. I've noticed a lot of leaders delegate their leadership way too early, or management way too early. Guys aren't properly equipped, guys aren't properly trained, guys don't have the right mindset. And this is the worst part about it. Most leaders delegate their leadership simply because they don't want to do it anymore. It's not that that sales guy stepped up and took the leadership, or that he showed signs of like, hey, he got the potential to be a leader, or he's actually being a leader in that moment. It's just you don't want to manage the team. You don't want to do sales training, so you just pass it on to another guy. That may be your best sales guy, right? Just because he's the top sales guy don't necessarily mean he's the best guy to be leading the team or training the team or teaching the team. So I've seen a lot of leaders they delegate their leadership way too soon. And what I've learned from some of my coaches is leadership is taken, it's not given. Usually natural leaders just rise to the occasion. They slowly, start doing different habits, different things, and then they just take the leadership. Like when I was leading my canvassing team, I just started leading the canvassing team before they even gave me the actual title of being the canvassing manager. I was already taking them out in the field. I was already spending time with them in the office. I was giving them one-on-one coaching time. I was answering all of their questions, right? So I was showing the signs of a leader. I took that leadership and then I got to position. They didn't give it to me prematurely, because when you give people things prematurely, sometimes they ruin them. So I've been noticing as I've been flying around, a lot of owners, a lot of sales managers, they're delegating their leadership way too soon. And I love to say, if you're the best trainer in your company, you are the guy that should be training everybody until you build somebody else up to do it at the level that you do it at. So guys, stop delegating your leadership too soon and prematurely, because that's really what's stopping your culture from thriving, your team from thriving, because you got an immature leader in a position that he's not ready to be in, and he can't maintain that respect from the other sales guys, and it's actually killing the performance of the team. So that's a big one I've been noticing. You're just delegating your leadership way too soon, way too fast. And not because that guy deserves it, because you just don't want to do it anymore. So those 6 things I've been noticing as I've been flying around the country, man. Lack of accountability, right? No consequences. Toxic favoritism. No team awareness. Delegating your leadership way too soon. Those are some things I've been noticing and paying attention to. And if you got some of those in your company, I highly encourage you sit down and take the necessary steps to fix those so you can have a thriving culture. Because people work with you for 2 reasons: to make money, or you got an amazing culture. And if people come to you for money, they'll leave you for money. But when people come to you because you got an amazing culture, because it's growing, you teaching them, you investing into them, you taking them to new heights, it's hard for people to leave that type of environment. But when people see that, it's no consequences for their actions, they see favoritism, they see that you don't really understand them as a person, right? They see that you got the wrong people in the leadership position, right? No accountability, things like that. It's easy for people to leave that type of culture and go find a thriving culture where they can fit in and grow, right? So those are some things that I've been noticing as I've been flying around the country, man. And I highly encourage, if you're dealing with those, fix those, change those, so you can have an amazing culture, so you can have a thriving sales team, so you can hit all your goals and crush the game, right? So if you got some value out of the day, I highly encourage you, leave us some comments down in the comment box. We do pay attention to those, right? If there's any topics that you want us to cover on Roof Hustlers, please send us an email, roofhustlers@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us over on Instagram at Roof Hustlers, TikTok, Roof Hustlers, Facebook, Deshaun Bryant in the Roof Hustlers page. We always appreciate you guys' feedback, and we always looking in the comments to see what you guys saying about the content, right? So, as always, baby, hustle hard, hustle smart, and don't be afraid to bogart. Hustlers, I'm out.